Do you ever get an IBS flare-up that completely stops you in your tracks? Extremely frustrating and debilitating, right? Because there is nothing that you can do except stay at home or run to the bathroom and stay there as long as you need to. Now, IBS can be either constant or it can come and go with periodic flare-ups. Neither one is fun, but the flare-ups are different in that they are so completely unpredictable, at least usually, right? And what are the symptoms of an IBS flare-up? When people talk about IBS flare-ups, they're usually talking about either pain and or diarrhea. But IBS can involve many other symptoms, including constipation, gas, bloating, and those symptoms can also be the predominant symptoms that you might have during an IBS flare-up. Now, what does an IBS flare-up usually feel like? Well, most people describe it as severe cramping or abdominal pain with an urgent need to have a bowel movement. But like we said, not everyone gets abdominal pain with their flare-up. But if you do, it can be so debilitating that you end up curled up in the fetal position, lying down, just trying to deal with the pain, and it may be all you can do to get through your day until it improves. Now, other people, of course, get episodes of uncomfortable constipation or bloating or gas that may even last for days at a time, and they're maybe fortunate not to have the type of extreme, severe kind of pain, but it's just incredibly uncomfortable. How often can these happen, and how long does an IBS flare-up last? Well, IBS flare-ups can occur once or twice a week. They can occur once a month. They can occur several times a year, basically, once every several months. And they may last anywhere from a few hours to as long as a few weeks at a time. And they occur, of course, in between periods of relatively normal bowel movements where you have basically unremarkable digestion or whatever you consider to be relatively normal. Now, many people notice that their digestion isn't exactly perfect in between their IBS flare-ups. It's just not quite nearly as bad, right, as it is during the flare-ups. Have you ever noticed this? Now, what do you do when you get an IBS flare-up? Well, ideally, what you do is you see an IBS specialist and you really sort out the true cause of your IBS and prevent it from ever happening again. Of course, that would always be the best option. However, there are a few things that you can do immediately to deal with the symptoms and to minimize the pain and the urgency and to get some semblance of your life back. Now, your first instinct when treating your IBS flare-up might be to simply not eat. And believe it or not, that's a really good instinct because there's nothing wrong with essentially fasting for a day or two because this allows you to minimize the impact that food has on your digestive system because it needs some time to heal. And of course, if you don't eat, then you're not asking your digestive system to do any work, which means it gets some time off. Now, stress, of course, is another thing that it's really good to try to minimize stress because that's not going to help. I mean, it never helps the health issue. So if you tend to focus your stress in your stomach or your abdominal area, then you want to do everything you can to try to minimize that. Now, this, of course, is easier said than done, but there's even some simple things that you can do that anyone can do, and that is take some deep breaths. And those have been shown, there's been lots of studies on that, that literally they can immediately decrease your stress response. So I'll give you an example right now. Just what you want to do is you just stop and you say, okay, I'm just going to take a long breath in and a long breath out. And you might count to about 5 when you do that. So you just go, and that's 5 in and 5 out. And if you're someplace where you want to do it quietly, then do it quietly. Just go. And you can do that pretty much anywhere, right? And when you do it, let your shoulders drop too. Just let your shoulders relax, let your body relax. Pretty simple. It's just a very simple thing. It's very effective. And you can use it as a tool to help in any kind of stressful situation. And like we said, you can do it almost anywhere, right? You can do it at your desk. You can do it in your car. You can do it at a meeting even. You name it. Just don't forget to breathe. Don't forget the little things. All right. What to eat when you have an IBS flare-up? Now, sooner or later, of course, you're going to want to eat something and you're going to need to eat something. So when you do, here's what you should eat. And one of the things that you may have heard about is a low FODMAP, because that's often suggested, a low FODMAP diet. Now, I've got an even better and a much simpler idea, because that's a very complex diet and it may or may not help you, but here's something that I can almost guarantee is going to help. So there are foods such as salads, for example, and uncooked veggies and raw foods and nuts. These all require a lot of energy to digest. When you are in the midst of an IBS flare-up, your digestive tract is very inflamed and it's irritated. And the last thing you want to do is have to make it work really hard to break down foods to digest them. So stay away from salads, stay away from nuts, stay away from unpeeled fruit like an apple, and raw foods, stay away from those. Same thing with meats, right? You don't want to be eating a steak or a big piece of chicken or something that's going to take a lot of work to chew and to break down. Make sure that everything you eat is well cooked and extremely easy to swallow, and that you don't have to do a lot of chewing. And in this time, don't be afraid to overcook your food. It's actually better than undercooking your food at this stage of the game when you have an IBS flare-up. Also, stay away from high fiber foods, especially insoluble fiber. What insoluble fiber does is it can feel abrasive in the digestive tract and irritate this already inflamed area. So foods high in insoluble fiber include wheat, include whole grains, include beans, fruit skins, nuts, seeds, and potatoes, especially potato skins. Smoothies are very helpful as long as they are low in sugar. So sugar is bad for your digestive system, especially when you're in a flare-up, and you should be avoiding that at all costs, right? But smoothies are great because they're basically pre-digested food, because that's what you've done, right? It's all been blended up. And this minimizes the energy that your digestive system needs to break the food down, because it's already broken down. Soups are another good example of this. They're easy to digest because the process of making the soup, of cooking it, has already broken down much of the food in the soup. So this will be much easier on your digestive system. Of course, be sure to avoid any foods that you already know are problematic, right? And you have a reaction to. So if you have a food intolerance or food sensitivity and you like to cheat occasionally because you can get away with it and it's not a big deal, don't do that during an IBS flare-up, because that's the worst time, of course, to cheat. So be sure to avoid those foods. Now, what should you take for an IBS flare-up? And we have found that one of our most popular products for IBS flare-ups is called GI Support, something we actually have made. And patients often find this helpful because it's soothing to the digestive tract and helps the healing process along. It's not a cure-all. I'm not going to stand here and pretend that it's going to solve all your problems, because what you need to do is see an IBS specialist for that. And they'll help you track down the actual cause of this, of why are you getting this flare-up, of what's causing these symptoms, so that you no longer get these symptoms. You don't get IBS flare-ups. But it's a lot better than doing nothing. So there is a lot more than hope for stopping IBS flare-ups and getting your life back. Do you get IBS flare-ups?